This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Good. How are you?
2 8 seeds in the finals. It's the craziest shit ever, bro.
Right,
craziest shit ever. I mean, it's other cities have had their NHL and NBA team in the finals, but none of them were 8 seeds, and somehow or another did this. And I actually believe the Panthers are the ones that have the better chance at. They're one of our sponsors. They sell a lot of stuff. Brother, I got this. I'm buying this today. How sweet of a lid is this? Huh? Is that a sweet lid or
first
what?
Of all, the Panthers have one of the nicer logos, I think, in sports. Like when they rebranded it a handful of years ago, they really did a nice job.
Classy.
It is classy. It looks, even though they're not a team that's played since like the 40s, it looks like a logo you'd have, from that era. No, it's very nice. And in hockey, who's got the hotter goalie? Who's got a better power play? I mean, there's just, hockey's a weird sport like that where Bobrovsky was so all year long, but he's been lights out in the playoffs. Right. And that's enough to win. I mean, it really is. So no, I think they have a very good chance to win.
Yeah, I'm with you there, dude. I think because of the way Tkachuk and all these guys are playing right now, and the way Bob is playing, they got to. I mean, shit, man. What they've done already in this run to take down Boston and Toronto and Carolina, that's just absolutely crazy. They've taken down better teams than what they're facing right now in the Stanley Cup. Maybe this team is better than Toronto, but fuck, Boston is and Carolina may be better than Vegas. So
I could be wrong. I mean, Boston had the highest point total. They won the President's Trophy. I think they beat 3 of the 4 highest point totals in the league, with the Devils being the only exception, who they obviously lost to Carolina. Right. No, listen, they're gonna have a really good chance. I mean, Vegas, they've been here before. I mean, I'll say this for Vegas: has there ever been a better expansion team ever? It's unbelievable. They've been in the conference final like 4 out of the 6 years they've existed. But no, the Panthers have a really good
the
chance.
Second they got into the league, they became a quality franchise, which is just ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, they're on their 3rd coach.
I know, it's weird. It is weird. But I mean, really, hockey does expansion right. Like when you look at hockey, it didn't take long in the 90s for the Panthers to go to the final. The Sharks were good pretty much right away a few years in. The Senators took a little bit, but were good. And then really, the only team really that has not picked up is Columbus. And even they've had a few years. But like Vegas, Seattle this year. Seattle was really good. It's their 2nd year of existence. So the NHL, if you're an expansion team, you actually have a chance. Like, you don't have to just suck for 10 years like you do in most of these sports.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there, man. It just really is amazing what's gone on with the Panthers, and to be able to overcome all of this, play the way you played all year, and then turn things around like the Heat did. It's just something I've never seen before in my life. But I will say this. Whereas the Heat, it's, they keep pulling off miracle after miracle. I think the Panthers are pretty legit, actually.
It's really good.
Yeah, they're a team that really shouldn't have been this bad all year long. And that's the strange part about it.
I think we've talked about why, they had a new coach and a lot of change, and that takes time. I mean, it really does. But, it's funny, like the one thing. No, I agree that the Panthers are legitimate. With the Heat, take nothing away from them. Give them all the credit in the world for where they're at. But the Heat have shot the ball in a way that I don't think they could do this if they did 100 more playoffs. I mean, they've just – and, hey, listen, that's not a knock. That's just the way it goes. They are hot as hell at the right time, and they're beating teams. And kudos to them. But the Panthers – like next year, if you said to me, do you think the Heat are going to win the NBA title, same team next year, I'd be no, I don't think they could do that. The Panthers could be back in the final next year with this team. I mean, I don't think that's wild. So you know what, as a longtime hockey fan, it's fun to see that building with fans in it and excited and the area excited. I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I think all these purists who are like, it would have been better if Boston was here. Those fan bases are already established and built, and everybody's going to sell out every one of those games.
Yeah.
As he loves the sport, I want to see the Panthers be good. I want to see the Hurricanes be really good. Those are the franchises that, I want to see those buildings rocking. And the Panthers fans have been awesome this entire playoff run. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
I'm with you there. Where does DeAndre Hopkins end? Because there's, people are either saying he's available right now still because people think he can't get separation. He's getting up there in years. People are afraid to give him a multi-year deal because of his age. He wants big money. He sounds a lot like Melo, that he's more interested in his money than actually winning. And it's like, yo, dude, haven't you made a lot of money? Don't you want to go somewhere where you can, because some of the contenders that he may want to go to may not have the cap space for the kind of salary he wants, right? Like if you want to play with the Bills or the Chiefs, well,
you're not
dude,
getting $20 million.
Right. You're not, you're going to have to sacrifice some, but dude, you have a shot at a freaking title. Now, but he sounds a lot like Melo. I don't know what you're hearing behind the scenes. Is money really the driving factor for him?
Certainly at the top of the list. And look, I think the one thing that is...
Does that make sense to you, by the way? That money would be at the top of his list at this point?
All these guys have such a short, finite career. Like, I'm never going to kill a guy for going after money. At the same point, legacy-wise, bro, you need a ring. Like, that's like if you want to be remembered, no one's going to remember that you played for the Texans and the Cardinals. I'm not saying people won't remember him. He was a great player. But, no one's like, it's kind of like Andre Johnson, right?
Exactly.
Andre Johnson was a phenomenal player, like one of the best receivers I've ever seen.
Ever.
And you know how often he comes up in conversations?
Never.
Because they never won anything. Nobody cares. Like, to me, that in the end, like, you've got to, even if you don't want a ring, can you be on a bunch of really competitive teams? The Kellen Winslows of the world, the Ozzie Newsomes, like they never won.
The LSU kid in just 2 years or 3 years and a busted knee for half a season has already done more than you in his short career. Why? Because he and Joe Burrow made it to a Super Bowl already. It's like
it's what it is. It's the way the world works. So, listen, I think the one thing that needs to be said, though, because this stuff, one thing that drives me nuts is you turn on the TV and people that know better sit there and just go, yeah, the Bills and the Chiefs. Okay, but dive into that for a second. So the Bills and the Chiefs have no cap space, okay? Like between them, they can rub about 3 nickels together. So now you can create cap space. You always hear people say, well, the cap's fake. And to an extent, there's truth in that. But the bill also comes due. Next year, 2024, the Bills already have 9 players making double-digit salaries, $10 million or more, all right, including Allen, who's almost at 50 next year. Could they move money down the line? Yes, but that becomes a hell of a cap crunch. I mean, they're going to have to start cutting real guys, not like, oh, this guy who doesn't really play, like real players, just to get a year of DeAndre Hopkins. If I'm the Bills, I'm leery about that. If I'm the Chiefs, you can do it a little easier because of Mahomes' contract, which is essentially a get out of jail free because it's so long. You can just move $23 million down the road, which is what they could do with a restructure, and it doesn't really hurt you. But the Chiefs have shown, and Tyreek Hill is a perfect example of it, they have a number, and they are not going to go over that number. And if they didn't go over it for Tyreek Hill, they're sure as hell not going over it for DeAndre Hopkins. So the question is going to become for Hopkins. If he wants to play for one of those teams, they'll make some room, but it's going to be at their price. It's going to be at their number. And that makes me think that usually when you have conversations like this, what happens? He ends up going somewhere else. Cleveland's going to have some money. Detroit's going to have some money. Do the Giants try to prop up Daniel Jones? They'd have to create a little space, but they could with Barkley on the tag. I mean, I just tend to believe the Chiefs and Bills make a ton of sense, but he's going to have to take less to go there. There's just no way.
And you know more than I do about this, I'm just going by what I feel from afar here. I kind of get the feeling that the Chiefs really want to kind of try this Kadarius Toney thing as a number one because all you have to do is be around the kid and watch him. He's got number one talent. And so if you bring Hopkins in, does that then take away from him and Sky Moore and Scantling? And it's not that receiving core is actually better than what people think it is. Actually,
Well,
it's a decent receiving core,
I think
bro.
here's the
So I'm just wondering, because if Kadarius really puts a whole season together, it could be pretty special with that quarterback, bro.
I mean, here's their thought process. I can tell you for fact is build a defense that's at least average or better. I mean, obviously they're hoping it's better than average, but at least like build in a floor that it's not going to be a bad defense. Offensively, you have Mahomes, give him protection, give him a line. That's why they spent $80 million on Juwan Taylor. That's why they brought in Donovan Smith on a flyer for 1 year. We'll see how he plays. Last year he wasn't good. We'll see if he bounces back. That's why they used a third-round pick on Wanya Morris, a tackle out of Oklahoma. They believe that if they have Mahomes, Andy Reid on the sideline, and a really good offensive line, they're going to score a ton of points. And history says they probably will. The other part of it is, if I have to hear one more person say, well, who's their number one receiver? It's Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's their number one receiver, okay? And he's had more yardage receiving-wise than anybody in football over the last 6 years. Like, he's their number one receiver.
Gronkowski was the number one forever,
he was the number
bro.
one guy.
I mean, what's
And
the
that's
difference?
how they played, and they didn't care. Like, the Chiefs look at it as if you have Kelce and you've got that line with Mahomes, you got Pacheco and McKinnon in the backfield. Those receivers are rotatable parts, and they do love Tony. They absolutely think he can be a number one guy, and he's got to prove it. He's got to stay healthy, but the talent's there.
Oh,
Stanley's a fine number two. They've got a million guys who can rotate.
I like Sky Moore, dude.
He was good last year. He just never played because they had all these other guys.
I think Sky Moore could end up growing up to be the number two on that team.
He could be, but I think the overarching point, Big O, is that they're not desperate for a receiver. I think nationally there's this perspective, and even though I'm national, there's this perspective that, oh God, they got to get Hopkins. They don't feel like that. They look at it like, if we get him at our number, that's great. We're happy to do it. But we're not going to spend just to keep him from Buffalo, just to keep him from another. If he goes to Buffalo, they look at it as fine. We'll find a way to win. And they,
you're saying the same thing I kept telling Dolphin fans all offseason with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Oh, they're trading for. No, they're not. They're not going to trade for him. They don't trade for backs. They don't spend high picks. They don't spend big money. And what did they do? They brought back Wilson at a reasonable deal. They brought back Mostert at a super reasonable deal. And then the coach was in love with A-Chain.
Yep.
So they spent a third-round pick on a guy. And as I kept telling people, you think now they're going to keep trying to trade for Cook? No, bro. They're set with their guys. They like their guy. It's like Kansas City. You guys can complain all you want about our receivers. We like our receivers. We have good receivers, and we have a Hall of Fame tight end. We're good, guys. And that's what people just don't understand.
The best teams in sports are the teams that aren't desperate. They're the teams who know exactly who they are, and they just operate in that space. Miami's identity is they are going to just outrun you. They are fast as hell. Defensively now, they bring in a coordinator who he knows himself as well as anybody in football. They are going to play his system. They're going to play his way. Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo, his defenses have looked the same for 20 years. They're going to bring a lot of blitz packages at you. They're going to put pressure on the corners, and they're going to say, you know what? We are going to overwhelm you, and you're eventually going to make a mistake. And his defenses, and they've brought in guys that they are built to do that. That's how they want to play. The teams that fail are these teams that every year are switching out coordinators, and they're always changing their identity, and they're trying to build a team around the player. And it's like, look, you have to just be who you are. I think that's one of Buffalo's problems, to be totally honest. Buffalo offensively has no identity. It is just Allen taking a 7-step drop and chucking the ball. And you know how you really know a team's identity? When the crucible's at its hottest, when you've got to have it, because that's when it really comes out.
It is very Sandlot.
It is.
The Bills are very Sandlot because they also have no running game that's dependable, that's reliable, that's a force, because they don't commit to the run like they. The guy that runs is Josh Allen, actually. So yeah, you're right. And they've committed this year. It looks like they want to build a running game, which they better. I mean, if not, Josh Allen's he will die early in this league. He will not have a long career if he continues to play the way he's playing, because they're going to break him in half, bro.
we've talked a lot about the Ravens and their failings in the playoffs, and that's real. I mean, the Ravens have had their issues in the playoffs. Nobody would argue that. But I'll give the Ravens one.
How about Lamar saying running can only take you so far?
Yeah.
Young man, you figured it out. Let's see now.
Right?
Let's see if he can pass now, but let's see.
Right. But he learned. I mean, come January, you can win a lot of games in regular season by just being more talented than the opposition, right? I mean, if you're a talented team, you can just out-talent somebody who is going to win 4, 5, 6 games. But when you get to the playoffs and you play these really good teams and these really good coaches, and I put Fangio right at the top of the list. I mean, think about the AFC defensive coordinators, right? You've got Fangio. You've got Spagnuolo. You have Anarumo. I mean, you've got guys. Like, you've got real coordinators. And these teams, when you play a team like Baltimore has been so one-handed in terms of the way they play on offense, those coordinators are just going to say, you're not beating us running. You are not going to beat us on the ground. Beat us any other way. And those teams, because they're in the playoffs, they're talented enough to do it. They're talented enough to just take it away without having to cheat with the numbers and say, okay, throw the ball. And now Baltimore, I think to their credit, has finally realized, look, we cannot play this way and win in the playoffs. But I think some of these teams, to bring it back to Buffalo for a second, Buffalo, it's the other way where they just won't ever run the ball. And I don't mind you putting the ball in the hand of Josh Allen, but their problem has been they don't even have a possession game. It's just we're going to chuck it.
Right.
And that's fine when you're playing some team like Houston who just has no chance. But again, if you're playing a smart coordinator, they're going to say, you know what? We're going to play 2 safeties deep. We're going to challenge everything over the top. We're going to try to put pressure, and Allen's going to have to beat us on these intermediate routes. And he's got the arm talent to do it, but the Bills don't have the infrastructure to do it. They've got to change. And if they don't change, they're not going to win a Super Bowl.
I'm with you there. Tom Brady and the Raiders.
Yep.
What the hell is going on? The Derek Carr story. Not the Derek Carr, the Garoppolo story with the surgery, and like they kind of knew that he was messed up, and yet you still sign him. Now you've got Brady, and then they're saying that maybe he steps down from ownership to I think, by the way, personally, I think if he ever tries it again, I think it's going to be an unmitigated disaster by Brady. I really do. I think he's going to get old with the quickness, and he didn't even want to get hit last year. He was already kind of checking out last year. So to me, it would be a disaster. But can you please explain what the hell is going on there with the Raiders?
Oh, God, that's a hard question. How do you explain what's going on with the Raiders? How much time do we have?
Not enough.
No, we don't. Look, this Cliff Notes version of this, that franchise has not won a playoff game since 2002 for a reason. Okay? I wrote a whole piece right when they signed Garoppolo. It's one of the first things I ever wrote for Sports Illustrated. They are doing the same thing that every other guy who's ever come out of New England has done. It is just, how many guys can I get that have played in Foxborough? That's all I want to do. I want to recreate it. And if you look at the Raiders, what did they do this offseason? Philip Dorsett, expat. Jacoby Myers, expat. Brian Hoyer, expatriate.
Oh, God.
He can't
play.
I mean, none of those guys other than Meyer can play. Like, Jacoby Myers is a real player. Fine.
Yeah, he is.
The rest of these guys are all just expatriates. It's like a cult. They just bring these guys. I mean, Matt Patricia brought in 15 expatriates when he was in Detroit. 15! That's like 30% of your roster. And most of those guys weren't even guys you would care about. They were just guys, you know. And I think the same thing happened here. McDaniels just said, I want my guy, and Garoppolo's my guy, and I'm going to bring him in. And everybody said at the time when they had to delay that presser by a day, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And I always thought that was weird. It could never pin down why, but that doesn't happen. Like, why are you delaying this? Well, now we find out he needed foot surgery, and he may never play it down for the Raiders. And now there's like, well, they could void the contract. Here's my thing with the Raiders. Let's say that happens and you void the contract. Okay, now what? Brian Hoyer's your starting quarterback?
Oh my God, that guy can't play.
The only upside of that is you're in a real fight now for Caleb Williams and Drake May.
For sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now now here's the other side of this though. Let's say Garoppolo can play by week 1. Can he play in camp? Can he play a preseason game? Is he going to have no reps and walk into this? Like, here's another question. Why did they trade Darren Waller for a 3rd-round pick? Like, I like Michael Mayer as much as an ex-guy. He's not Darren Waller at this point. And I look at it and say, you know what? You have a quarterback in Garoppolo who cannot throw a deep ball. Cannot do it. You have Devontae Adams, who's a great deep ball receiver, who now is completely neutered in that regard. You're talking about maybe getting rid of Renfro, who's a possession receiver. You don't have the tight end who's going to work the middle. How is this going to work? You have no offensive line outside of Colton Miller. Like, it's just that, McDaniels, everywhere he's been that doesn't involve Tom Brady, has been a disaster. Everywhere. Every single stop he's been has been a train wreck, and he's just alienated people. And so we're back at this. And no, for the record, I do not think Brady's playing one snap at the Raiders. You think he wants to get behind that offensive line?
Oh, God, it would be dumb. It would be dumb. Would be dumb. All right. I got to ask you, because I thought about you this morning. As we talk about one dysfunctional organization in the Raiders, let's talk about another. Your Knicks. They got rid of Scott Perry now. Like, what's the deal, bro?
Well, look, I'm not in the business of ever defending the Knicks, and I won't do it here. But I will say this: they have a weird situation there, which I guess you could. But maybe the title of my book is being a Knicks fan. They have Leon Rose, and they have Worldwide West there. And Thibodeau's involved in the front office. They have Brock Aller, who's really kind of their de facto GM. Like, Perry and Steve Mills were involved years ago, and when they were making the decisions, it didn't particularly work out well. And now Mills is gone. They parted away. Like, honestly, they have so many cooks in that kitchen. I don't really care. Like, it's just weird. They don't really have like if I had to say one guy who probably makes the most decisions, it's probably Brock Aller and Leon Rose. They probably are the two that have like the biggest decision making, handle on everything. But look, my biggest fear with the Knicks this offseason is they actually have a pretty good young team. Like, they've got some really nice pieces. I mean, they got to figure out what the hell they're doing with Randall. But like, the rest of that team is actually pretty young and good. Barrett's good, Quickly's good, so on and so forth. Brunson's great. The fear I have is that some B-list superstar, like Bradley Beal, is going to say, I want to get traded. And the Knicks are just going to go, that's great. 4 firsts, Quickly, and Barrett. And then I'm done. Like, that's my biggest fear.
Brunson does need that other star next to him.
They do, but they need the guy. They don't need like
right. I get what you're
saying. A 1B. He's really, really good, but he's not.
Yeah,
he's not. A top 10 player in the league. He's probably top 15. He's probably somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Randall's a really good regular season player. In the playoffs, it's a disaster. Barrett is 22, and I think Barrett's going to become a very good 2 or 3. They need the guy. They need that who it's like when you have to. I mean, look, against Miami.
Well, who's that disgruntled guy that you can get and he's willing to go there?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be this year. Is it Luka eventually?
Yeah.
Played with Brunson. I mean,
that's true.
Is it eventually? I'll give you another one real quick. Now, I don't think, again, it won't be this offseason. Is it eventually Devin Booker? If that team falls apart, Booker, who's got Kentucky ties, and everybody with the Knicks is tied to the University of Kentucky. I mean, do they just say, you know what, him and Brunson in the backcourt with Barrett and Randall and Robinson, that team's pretty damn good. I mean,
they got to get Brunson, that other guy.
They do.
If anything, I think Brunson proved he can be a number 2, bro.
Oh, he's he's a great player.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player, and you put the whole burden on him of the franchise, which is a little unfair. Yep. And this is why you saw Kyrie Irving flop, and Brunson and Luka got to the Western Conference Finals, bro.
Well, look,
and that's because he gave Luka the proper support that he needed as that number 2 guy, and Kyrie is just not mature enough to do those kind of things. I mean, he'll shoot for you and score some for you, but he doesn't know how to play the game of basketball completely for you as a leader in the in the locker room, on the practice court, all that. And this kid is just marvelous, bro. He, I pick on Riley here because Jimmy needs that number 2 guy, and he hasn't been able to find that other star, and it pisses me off because, brother, Spo and Jimmy have done more with less than almost anybody in the NBA in the last 25 years. Bro, the Nets have 2 stars or more. The Sixers have had 2 stars or more, including Jimmy Butler. The Suns have 2 stars or more. The Clippers have 2 stars or more. Portland, for a while before he left to New Orleans, they had a couple of stars. None of them can go to 4 conference finals and 2 NBA finals in 4 years.
No.
Jimmy has done more with less than almost anybody I've ever seen in the history of the NBA. And can you imagine if Jimmy had that other star next to him? Spo would win a championship if he had one more star next to him, because it's not Bam, dude.
Bam is a really good player, but I agree. I don't think he's that.
He's a role. He's a super role player, is what. You know how I look at Bam? This is what I tell Heat fans. I look at this perspective from it. He's Udonis Haslem and he's PJ Brown. They're completely different, all three of them, but they're the exact same player. They're a really key number 4 guy. They're the guy that sets the table. They set the attitude, defense, role player, all that stuff. But they're not your lead offensive player. Well, but they are a very important player to the success of your team. Yeah,
I think he's a better offensive player for sure. But he's kind of like what Mitchell Robinson is to the Knicks.
Right. He's a better offensive player, but he's not a better defensive player than PJ Brown was. And yet he's not a better offensive scorer than Udonis Haslem was, because Udonis Haslem could hit that 16-footer like money in the bank. And in key moments, you would throw it to UD on that baseline, and brother, it was money in the bank. He could hit that 50. He was fearless.
You know what?
Whereas Bam doesn't play with that fearlessness on offense. He's timid.
Udonis Haslem always reminded me as a 90s Knicks lover of Charles Oakley.
Yeah, exactly.
Just step out and
a poor man's Oakley.
Yes. Mid-range jumper. I mean, at Charles Oakley, one thing about it, he was crazy. Charles Oakley, I mean, there was nobody. I remember there were a handful of games as a Knicks fan, like every once in a while, you get a hard foul, and some guy could come up like looking to fight, and you see Charles Oakley, big Dom, good. Actually, I'd rather fight Ewing.
Yeah, but Oakley was the skilled enforcer.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas what was the guy that played for the Nets?
Kenyon Martin?
No, Mahorn. Mahorn was just an enforcer. You understand? Whereas Oakley, that son of a bitch will post you up. He'll hit a jumper. He was a very, very, very good player, bro. Not just an enforcer. I mean, Oakley is as good as it gets, bro.
As a kid, my favorite player ever as a kid was John Starks. I had the poster right over my one shoulder here. I mean, John Starks and Oakley and Ewing and Derek Harper. I mean, that team now, I'm sure Heat fans hated that team with passion.
A hell of a team.
You know what? It's fun. I'm glad the Knicks are good again. And really, hell, after watching the Heat make this run, I mean, I think back to that game 6 in Miami. I'm like, geez, if anybody would have helped out Brunson, they could have even maybe got it to 7. I don't know if they would have won or not. The Heat were the better team. But it was at the time, you're like, man, they lost to an 8 seed, and like they were so, they just beaten Cleveland. But now you're like, Knicks actually played pretty well.
Right. Yeah. Now you see it and you say, Knicks had a good season, but in hindsight, they're not better than the Heat. The Heat just had
the Heat are better.
A crappy regular season, and they should have been a 4 or 5 seed is probably what they should have been.
Yes. The Heat are the better team. And that's, honestly, I thought the Knicks were going to lose to Cleveland going into the series. I was like, Cleveland, Mitchell's experience, Cleveland at 7. The Knicks destroyed Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, that felt nice. Because as a Knicks fan, I'm like, this is going to be where Donovan Mitchell, who they could have had, comes in and averages 40 a game. And I got to tell you, and I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan, that was a brutal series. I mean, he couldn't hit him and Garland, the two of them, they couldn't score. They couldn't hit a shot.
Brunson showed you that he's probably the better player than Mitchell.
Yes.
Not skilled, but better basketball player, toughness, mentality, that kind of, leadership, that kind of stuff. That kid didn't waver at all, bro. In any of those, he did it like he played in Dallas. He did the same shit he did in Dallas. That he was awesome, bro. I've never seen a short guy post people up like he does.
He's funny.
Nobody does that shit. Nobody.
I'm not gonna say he's out of shape, but he's not one of these like ripped dudes. I mean, he's just kind of, he's got a floater and he can hit a little step back, and he's very crafty. He's crafty and he's tough. He's not afraid to get hit. He'll keep coming back. Like he's a perfect player for New York, because New Yorkers.
I've never seen a short guard, be so comfortable in the paint. Like, and he knows how to get separation from his body and the defender so he can get his shot off. He is a master at that. again, very, very few short guards like that are posting people up, and that Brunson is doing it constantly,
Yeah,
constantly.
love
If
the
you were a
guy. Love his
6'8",
game.
6'9" guard, then I get you, bro. Post people up
Right.
6'7".
A lot
I
easier at
got
that
you.
point.
But at his size, that is not normal, man. So that's why I'm saying that when I see Butler, I get frustrated that, man, we have ruined his 4 awesome years here because they did not find that other star. That if
Go
you
beat
get that
Denver.
other star, you might get over the hump here. You know what I mean? And so I see with the Knicks the same thing. You got to get Brunson the other guy, or if not, poor kid's going to kill himself every single year in the playoffs. You know,
Yep.
and it's just tough.
It's true.
Tough.
It's true. Well, hey, you're at the finals right now. Go win 4 games.
Let's hope so, bro. This is going to be tough. I mean, Caleb Martin. That's the guy I said a couple weeks ago on the show. I said, not Bam. Caleb's the guy that has a chance to be a star in this team.
You got to have Kevin Love have a big game or two in the series too. Like have
Yeah.
one of those games where he hits shots from the outside and he stretches the defense and just it just has one of those like, hey, you just can't stop him. He's just hit.
But if you get into that smaller lineup where they're scrambling all over the place and spraying the ball out, he can't defend.
No, I know.
And
I know
that's
that's
he
true.
can't
It's
move.
true.
He can't move. And if although Denver doesn't do that, they have bigger players. They will be a little bit more stationary overall. So they might be able to do that.
I'm with you. It's going to be an interesting series. I'm looking forward to it.
What Paulie King? What? Oh, Matt. Quick question: which coach do you think seat is hotter than people think?
It's a good question. Which seat? I'm just trying to think. I would say McDaniels, but McDaniels is not like they're not gonna pay him to go away. So
Can I give you one that I think we're a year away from?
I'll say Stefanski. Stefanski. That team, if they're not good this year, if that thing really goes south,
I like
all
that.
that they gave up for Watson, for all the crap they took, and rightfully so to get him, and then you factor in the ownership there, I would say Stefan. If they're 3-5, I could see Haslam just having like a meltdown one day and being like, "That's it, we're going with somebody else." So I'll say Stefanski's got to watch.
I think we're a year away from talking about Belichick. Just saying.
That would. I mean,
I think he doesn't. I think he doesn't make the playoffs this year. I think they show they don't have a quarterback, and now it's 3 out of 4 years you're not in the playoffs. You're headed in the wrong direction, and I think the grumbling starts, and because Kraft has already taken some shots. He's already taken a couple of shots already that he normally would have never taken with Belichick around. So I think that thing is loosening up a little bit. No hot seat yet, but I think after this failure of a season where they'll be in 4th place, I think he's going to look around and say, "Yeah, I think the magic's gone. I think we had our time and it's gone."
That team might have no magic left in it. I think most.
Oh no, it has none
because they have no quarterback. But
none.
I got to tell you, it's like if the Dolphins fired Shula. I just can't.
They did. They pushed his ass out, bro.
Yeah, they kind of let him
Landry. They pushed out Chuck Noll. It's not like it's not the first time that a great
Landry.
coach.
I mean, geez, they basically filmed him packing up his office. I mean, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't be I guess my point is, in all those scenarios, other than Landry, it was kind of like they let him do it on his own terms. Like it was like, look, we need you.
No, Shula didn't want to go.
Yeah, I mean,
trust me, Shula did not want.
I believe you. You're a lot closer than I am, but
Shula did not want to go.
I just can't. And maybe I'm nuts, man. Maybe I'm wrong. I just think that's going to be a Belichick. It's like, how long do you want to stay? And we're going to let this thing kind of just fizzle. But maybe, you know what? The NFL does stand for not for long, as Jerry Glanville once said. You know what? It's not crazy. I'll say that.
I normally would agree with you on this, but the problem is these two have butted heads already for years on the Brady stuff.
Sure.
They butted heads on the Garoppolo stuff. So they have been butting heads and then the shot he took just a couple of weeks ago when he said, well, we don't, is Belichick still around to just break Shula's record? And he goes, well, we don't keep players around just for stats.
Yeah.
It's about winning here. And we haven't won here in the last couple of years. We haven't been in the playoffs, and he elaborated on all that. I just think he's getting to that point where he's older too. He doesn't have time either to wait around to see if it turns around. I just kind of think that even that situation is going to end. It'll take another 2 years from now, but I think next year we start the hot seat talk.
It could.
I really do.
It's not crazy. And by the way, the back to just kind of wrap it, the Potley King's question about the coach's hot seat. I'll give you one. This would be an in-season thing. If the Jets don't make the playoffs this year, Robert Saleh, that seat is piping. Okay, like
really, you think so?
You know why? Think about it. So
I like him.
I like him.
I
too.
like him.
Here's the one thing with this. They've not been good for 2 years, and that's fine. He hasn't had a quarterback. The roster took over was garbage. Like nobody's killing him for that. And last year they were competitive. They ran out of gas with the offense.
Right.
But now comes real expectations. Like you got a real quarterback.
True.
You got a real defense. You're gonna find out now. Like, okay, well, how good of a coach are you? Because look, it's one thing when there's no expectations. That is New York. There are major expectations. That team needs to, at bare minimum, in my opinion, win a playoff game. If they don't do that, that's a flop and a half. And you have no idea if you got Rodgers for any more time. Now, do I think you would be fired? No. But my point is, if they go 9-8 and don't make the playoffs and they're healthy, I mean, Woody Johnson, I always look at owners like, who are the owners that you're just like, I have no idea what this guy's thinking? Well, Woody Johnson is right at the top of the list. You don't know what Woody Johnson's going to do. I mean, it's one of those things that you look at it and you're like, would I fire that guy? No. But could I see that owner just waking up one day and being like, I'm sick of being on the back page and I'm sick and tired of taking slings and arrows and I'm going to blame somebody else? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that is a possibility. I'm with you there. That could definitely happen. And then again, hey, they fire him. They have a head coach in the waiting and their offensive coordinator.
Of course.
It went so well in his last stop. So,
I can't even imagine him in New York. Oh my God. They would need 24-hour security around the thing.
That was hilarious.
When Kotite was the coach.
Oh.
And I was like 8, but I remember that. And I remember fans back then, my parents, we didn't have dish TV or anything. It was like you said, cable. So when we watched games, it was the Jets and the Giants. And it was routine that, the games were on NBC at the time. You'd be watching a Jets game and they'd show a shot of a crowd and 3 people would be giving the finger to Kotite. And they'd have to just stop showing the crowd because they're so angry all the time. I'm looking forward to the season though, man. We got about a month of OTAs and whatnot, mini camp, and then a couple weeks with that, to the tag deadline for a few of these teams. And before you know it, we'll be doing these interviews. I'll be on a camp tour. I'll be coming to you live from Detroit. I'll be coming to you live from Kansas City. You name it, I'll be there.
Looking forward to it. All right, follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Catch his work there at Sports Illustrated. Always getting it done. Matt, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you immensely.
Thanks a lot. Take care, guys.
You got it. There you go. Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.